Thank you so much, and thank you, IFAD, for this very important report with the title of a transformative and inclusive development that we want to see. And I think that this is also an important reminder of what was said when we adopted the new agenda for the sustainable development, the Agenda 2030, that we should not leave anyone behind. And also thanks to SIANI and to Sida, I think it will be very interesting to hear this afternoon the expertise that we have and that we need to have to form our policies and our development cooperation as Sweden. And also thank you, Paul, for reminding us about history and the importance of the interlinkages between the goals. I was thinking, and it's very good that we have a farmer here, that I was reminded several times when I was working abroad that we are very few of us now working in the development cooperation that actually have this experience. And of course, this is because there are not so many farmers in Sweden any longer. But the people that we meet and the people that we need to listen to and understand the reality, they are farmers. So I'm very happy that I have a colleague here who can actually represent also the experience also from a Swedish perspective. As has been pointed out now in the introduction, the majority of the extremely poor people still live in rural areas, and their livelihoods depend on smallholder farming, and a sustainable increase in productivity is, as was said, a precondition for achieve food security, but also sustainable economic growth. And secure access to nutritious food is not only a human right, you know that Sweden emphasized the rights-based perspective, but also necessary for decent life and for the possibility for people to contribute to economy and to growth. Poor people are those who are most vulnerable to climate change, and the Swedish government has climate change as one of three main priorities of all our ambitions as a government. Damaged ecosystems, marine pollution, and the degradation of soil is, of course, other examples of our planetary boundaries that Lennart pointed out initially. And this is a problem that will only become more acute as we see as time goes on. So it is something we really need to see to and to focus on. And responsible investments for the development of sustainable agriculture and also the sustainable use of forests and fisheries are therefore not only good environmental policy, but of course powerful tools for poverty reduction, as has been said. Rising rural incomes can be invested in education, in healthcare, which, as the Rural Development Report points out, lead to structural transformation. These are the linkages of the important goals. Investment can also be made in the improvement of agricultural production, of course, management of harvest, digitalization, and increased access to markets, as has been pointed out. And this is where IFAD has a clear and important role to play, both with investments and with knowledge sharing, as we do here today. It is also key to strengthen smallholders' access to finance, land, technology, informal networks, and advice and technical capacity. And connecting farmers with these tools will lead to poverty reduction, but for that to be possible, conducive policies are also necessary. You know that we have a Swedish feminist foreign policy, and thus we emphasize this in our development cooperation. Women are central to the development of rural areas, and this has not been mentioned by the previous speakers, but this is something that we need to bear in mind. Because they make up more than 70% of the agricultural workforce in some countries. And by improving rural women's access to resources and opportunities to food security and to nutrition, this will of course enhance the current and future generations' strive against poverty. And it is vital that the additional legal and social barriers in accessing these tools that face women should be tackled. Secure land tenure rights and access to fishing and natural resources are important aspects in this regard. The Rural Development Report shows that while we have made substantial progress in reducing rural poverty, much remains to be done. And I believe that a key takeaway from this report is that rural development or rural transformation, as is being presented, will only lead to poverty reduction if it is inclusive, and inclusivity is only possible if people have political, social, and economic rights. Once again, we need to look upon this with a rights-based perspective. As the report concludes, inclusivity does not happen by itself. It needs, of course, political leadership. And inclusivity is a precondition for poverty reduction, and I think we saw this also in the presentation. The Sustainable Development Goals will not be met without sustainable and inclusive rural development, of course, since we talk about 70% of the poor. Now, what about the Swedish support? Well, the Swedish support for rural people in developing countries is channeled in many different ways. We give core contributions to UN agencies, many of them working in rural settings, including, of course, the Rome-based agencies, IFAD, but also the World Food Programme and the FAO. And we give bilateral development cooperation to countries around the world based on development cooperation strategies decided by the government. And of course, rural development does not happen in isolation, why it is important that our support to other areas, such as health, education, gender equality, employment, and others, are related to the work that we do. And I would also like to stress the importance of Sweden's role in climate financing, and that we should see to that the climate funds are also conducive for the change and with the knowledge presented in reports like this. One example of a project that we are proud of funding is called Accelerating Progress Towards the Economic Empowerment of Rural Women. The program is a joint effort between IFAD, World Food Programme, FAO, and UN Women, and it's active in 7 countries worldwide: in Ethiopia, Guatemala, Kyrgyzstan, Liberia, Nepal, Niger, and Rwanda. And Sweden contributes to this project with 112 million kronor. Evidence shows that the project's approach through the use of women's discussion clubs is highly effective to close the gender gap. And it provides rural women with access to water, land information, service, and training opportunities. This is crucial for them to increase the productivity, but also the engagement of local and national governments needs to be there to help to develop and implement the interventions. Policies and laws are looked at to see that they actually promote equal rights and that rural women can benefit from more gender-sensitive practices. Finally, since I promised to be short, once again, thank you, IFAD, for this valuable report, giving us food for thought, and of course then also thanks to all of you working in different ways in this room as part of our Swedish development cooperation within this field. So I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.